Friends, after 5 weeks, we have come to the end of the Bread of Life discourse. And you could only wish that it ends well. But it does not. John concludes the discourse in these words. He says, "Many of Jesus' disciples returned to their former way of life and no longer accompanied him." And that's very disheartening. But just when you are prepared for the story to end badly, there is this glimpse of hope. Because Jesus comes to the 12 and he asks them, "Do you also want to leave?" Peter's response warms any disciple's heart. He says, "Master, to whom shall we go? You have the words of everlasting life. We have come to believe and are convinced that you are the Holy One of God." You wish the story just ended there. But again, we get devastating news. Jesus says to the 12, he says, "Did I not choose you, 12? Yet is not one of you a devil?" John reminds us, he says that Jesus was referring to Judas, the son of Simon the Iscariot, who would ultimately betray Jesus. As John writes the conclusion to this discourse, really it's more about the discourse. John is actually concluding the entire first section of his gospel. And this particular conclusion will also serve as the introduction to the next section. Now the plot thickens. Now the dice will be cast. Now people will have to make choices with regard to Jesus. That choice will disrupt life. That choice will determine eternity. Folks, John's entire gospel is written for one single purpose. He wants people to come to believe in who Jesus truly is. That he is the Son of God, the one who has come into the world. That he is the bread of life. That he is the light. That he is the resurrection and the life. And in every story that John writes, he concludes with people making a confession in Jesus as the Messiah. Whether it is the Samaritan woman or the man born blind or Mary and Martha at the resurrection of Lazarus, or for that matter, the 12 in today's gospel reading, they all make a confession of who Jesus is. Now, Jesus' demand for a confession in the earlier days was truly very difficult for the people, because really Jesus disrupted how people thought of God. Jesus really turned religion on its head. Jesus really introduced a new way of relating to God, and that really disrupted the lives of people. It was so disruptive that some people actually stopped following him and returned to their former way of life. It was so disruptive that Judas would betray him. It was so disruptive that the religious leaders would actually put him to death. Here is the crux of John's entire gospel. Genuine faith in Jesus Christ causes a total disruption in an individual's life. Not just the individual's life, but in the entire world. And think about world history. Jesus changed the course of human history. Folks, Jesus unsettles us. Jesus makes us uncomfortable. Think about this. to forgive in the way that Jesus demands, to love even in our enemies in the way Jesus shows us, to give without measure in the way Jesus gives, to live the life that Jesus lived, it is bound to unsettle us. And that's why I say faith, genuine faith, is disruptive. If our faith has made us too comfortable, if our faith is not unsettling us, if our faith in Jesus Christ is not disrupting our comfortable living, if our faith in Jesus is not making us question life, if our faith in Jesus is not making us little unsettled, then I have to say something is wrong with our faith. However, Jesus is going to ask us to make a choice. In the Gospel of John, there is no middle ground. There is no sitting on the fence. Either you must give it all or walk away. Either way, Jesus is going to disrupt your life. Either way, it's going to affect your eternity. Either way, faith is disruptive.